Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Caffeine and Sensu Beans podcast. I'm One Kick Man, joined by Chiween. Chiween, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, dude. I'm got some food right now cooking for the week. So I'm
Mhm.
I'm on this grind to lose a little bit more weight. I'm trying
Okay.
to we're trying to go somewhere for a little vacation
Oh, nice.
and trying to get this body right. You know what I'm saying? Or at least to a place where I feel like okay, I don't look like a slob out there. But I yeah, man. Just trying to get disciplined. Just trying to get on my stuff. I'm finishing up final month of work, so
Oh, that's
I'm pretty
awesome.
excited, dude. I'm about to, have a little bit of time. It has been a little hard though because my son is being we're gonna put him in daycare and it's kind of like a little school and
Hmm.
it's like it's exciting. Like we took him today to go see the place and like
Uh-huh.
it's exciting to see him like be excited about being somewhere. And
Uh-huh.
then it's also really sad because it's like, oh man, I'm not gonna see you around the house anymore, dude.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just, and man, and then I told myself, and this is the thing is like I don't want my son to go to school, and it's
Right.
just
Well,
it's hard, man. It's hard.
yeah.
There's no like I know I have to create the alternative for school, but like it's super hard to find an alternative that like lines up
That
with your
suffices.
ideology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, suffices and doesn't do a lot of the harmful shit school does. But other than that, internal struggle with my son in school, I am doing pretty good. I'm pretty
Yeah.
good. How about
Okay.
you?
I'm doing good. And just on that note, I think what's going to be exciting is going to see how he starts making friends, like how he
Yeah.
starts interacting. Like that's going to be really cool to see. And then he's going to get super excited. So that's going to be, I mean,
Well, like that's literally the only cool part about school is the friends that you end up making. Like
yeah, the
that's
friends
literally
you
the
made
only
along the
thing.
way.
Yeah, that's literally the only thing you remember from school.
Yeah,
You're not gonna remember the essay you wrote, but you remember your boy that flipped your backpack inside out,
that was me.
as you
Yeah.
were notorious,
For doing.
notoriously known for
I did
that.
it. I was. They knew me as the backpack flipper. Um,
Yeah.
but
How
yeah,
about you, man?
doing well, doing well. Just adjusting to dad life. Just yeah, trying to piece it together, right? Like, um, it's funny. Like we're good in many areas, and then there's just you can't, or at least for me, like you can't train for what actually is coming. Like we took care of everything we could, right? Like
Hmm.
we bought what we needed to buy. We set up accounts for our daughter that we need to set up. Like we made sure that both of us were in a good place. Like so to where it felt like a responsible decision, like having a child. We weren't doing it out of anything else but our own desire to have one. And we felt like
Hmm.
we could, but then it's like when the rubber meets the road and the baby's actually here, like there's just like you just can't prepare for the sleepless nights and the makeshift schedules. Like wrenches get thrown in the gears all the time, and then you just have to be able to adapt. But yeah, kind of like we were talking offline, um I'm just yeah trying to sort it out and then and make a schedule and try to stick to it in a way, right?
Hmm.
But
Yeah, man, we have this idea that like having a baby is like really magical, and it is. But there are those times though, for all the folks that are listening to us that are gonna be new parents or thinking
mm,
about having a baby, just like it's really beautiful
mm-hmm,
and it's really hard. Like
mm-hmm.
it's not like a romanticized version of like, oh, it's all kicks and giggles. It's like, no, when they're crying and it's like that heightened anxiety kicks in, like
Yeah,
for them and then for you too. It's like, oh shit, what am I supposed to do?
that's where I
And
was last night, dude. And
yeah, dude, and it's hard. It's hard to get in that.
yeah, yeah, no, it's true. Like it's just the you can't be the only thing that could prepare you is having already been a parent. Like being a first time parent, like there's just, I don't know, there's not much like it. Even if you, I mean, maybe if you babysat, but uh, it's it's like you said, it's beautiful, but it's moments of stress for sure. Because you want to make sure you're doing everything right by your baby, like, and um, but you also want to somehow keep your sense of like the
Like
independent, not in the,
sanity.
yeah, exactly, like
Insanity.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so juggling those two things, is it's almost not meant to happen, at least for the first few months. I don't know, but I think, it's good. Well, you kind of start to figure it out, right? And every day I will say this, like it does feel like it gets little bit better. Maybe not every day, because there are days where it feels like we've regressed, but looking at it retrospectively, like looking back at it, I certainly think we've progressed up until now, like
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
on a
It's like
weekly or daily
you can only
basis.
go up, right? You can only
Yeah,
go up.
exactly.
It's just like you just kind of start at the base and kind of eat shit in the beginning, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I got a couple of tricks up my sleeve, you know what I'm saying? And I gotta just bank in on those. And that is
Yeah.
that is essentially what, you know, makes it happen, man. By the second one, if you ever decide to have a second one,
Wow.
it's a different, it's just a different ball game. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of sacrifice,
Hmm.
and with that sacrifice, also comes sometimes the forgetting of oneself. And I think that is
Hmm.
always something that I notice about parents that I've interacted with. It's like they look really tired, and they're like, I sacrifice a lot of shit for my kid, and it's like, yes. And at the same time, are you taking care of yourself, and are you
Exactly.
doing the things you need? And that's always really hard, because especially if you're like in a Latino family, like the ones we have, is like, the whole thing is like, man, I came over here from over here, and I sacrificed hella shit for you, and you know what I'm saying? It's just like it's a lot of sacrificing, but there's not a lot of modeling for taking care of yourself.
Yep. And the other thing is like, um, well, to answer a question you kind of threw in there, are we planning on having another one? Um, yes. But when the nurse asked us that after the third day that my daughter was born, I
Uh-huh.
looked at her and was like, what are you doing bringing that up right now? Can you not see that I haven't slept in 2 days? Like that's the last thing I want to hear right now. But definitely, I mean, and the other thing is like the other night my fiance was like, oh, for the second one, I feel like we're gonna be much more prepared. And in my mind I'm like, what? I don't feel like I've learned anything at all, but that's just how I felt at like I have learned a lot,
Yeah.
but there's just no getting over the fact that it has its moments of stress, but also it has its moments that they can't be replaced. They are, like you said, magical, and they're very special. And I wouldn't trade it. I'm sure you feel the same way, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. um and then there's also another thing is like making sure you and your partner, if you are together, that you make time for yourself. I mean,
Yeah,
right, like,
for sure.
um
It's
that's
a
the
lot harder with two
challenge.
kids. I'll tell you that, though. I'll tell you that. With
Yeah,
two kids, it's a lot harder. I'll tell
that's what
you
I was
that.
gonna ask. Like, you going to on this vacation? Or it's just you and your wife, or are
No,
the
we're
kids
taking the
going?
kids. No, we're
Okay,
taking the kids.
okay,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible, but I think it has to be really intentional. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're very blessed that we have grandparents of our children here, and
right.
they can help us. And I always tell my partner of like, dude, I can't imagine somebody having this, like, these babies by themselves, or
It's
like they don't have
crazy,
any
man.
help. Like, it's
Crazy.
it's really it's really crazy to me that there are babies, and just out there like that. And that's
Yeah.
that's one of the sad parts about babies, that not every baby gets the opportunity to have that. I mean, some of them come out really dope, and some of them come out really, unfortunate, circumstances. But
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And I know we'll get into the Dragon Ball in like literally a few minutes, but
what's a great segue, what I'm saying, of who we're
it
talking
is.
about today.
It is.
So
But I have a coworker. She's awesome. I Yeah, I think the world of her. She's great. And she's helped me so much. She's helped me so much. She was my boss. And but when I met her, she's obviously a little bit older than I am. But when I first met her, she had a daughter. Now she has two daughters, and she's from SoCal. So she moved up without her parents, just herself and her husband. And at the time, I didn't like. She would tell us, "Oh, it's just more difficult not having our parents here." And I could, I would nod yes, like, "Oh my God, I can only imagine," but I couldn't fully grasp what it was she was telling me. Right, I couldn't relate. And now having a daughter, I couldn't imagine what that's like just her and her husband having to cope with it. Like you said, you on your side, you have uh, your in-laws. I we on our side, we do as well. And man, it without them, it would definitely be. I mean, it pushes you to the edge sometimes. I think without them, I might have fallen over for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, man, you said it earlier. It's a great segue into talking about Bardock, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
man, this is a Father's Day. I know it's Mother's Day about to come up, but this is a Father's this is a Father's Day
yeah, so
episode.
it's just a month and a half early, but it's good. Uh, how tie it to what we were just talking about right now. Obviously,
Yeah,
this
man.
right
So
now is
so
ad
so
lib
yeah, you know what I'm
improv,
saying.
but
So I think Bardock, to me, I think he exemplifies what we were just talking about, right? Because in Dragon Ball, we barely get to see any fathers actually be fathers,
mhm.
and
You're telling me King
um,
Vegeta is not cool?
yeah, King Vegeta just gets annihilated every time we see him on screen, and and in Goku, that's the boy, but he's kind of up in the clouds, so he's not, that man's over here eating and training. He's not getting a job somewhere to feed the family.
Oh, I
So
mean,
I mean, he's
definitely.
winning millions of dollars, though, or he's winning money off of tournaments. So that's
Right.
good. I think Gohan is probably coming in second place, but
Hmm.
in regards to fatherhood, but I think number one has to go to Bardock. I mean, that
Yeah.
the special that they did on Bardock, I think, well, one, that was probably one of our favorite things that we watched during this journey.
Hmm.
And now that we're fathers, I think we can relate a little bit to what Bardock was experiencing
Hmm.
in regards to his decision making around Goku, and I think the love that he eventually, I think, is able to exemplify for him, even though he passes away. And if anything, it shows us the ability of a father to recognize their child
Hmm.
and acknowledge their child, as opposed to uh, kind of not taking responsibility, right,
Yeah.
for their child. And I think he even though in the beginning it might have seemed a little off, because he was off and he was doing his thing, being a
Hmm.
fucking mercenary and shit. Like, by
Hmm.
the end, he kind of has this like epiphany, in my opinion, about fatherhood and about his son, and that even though everybody is telling them that this child is nothing,
Hmm.
he's able to see something,
Special in them. Yeah.
and that's the beauty about parenthood and fatherhood. I think he's a special character in that way, because I think he's like the one true father, that I think is in the show. Uh,
Yeah. I
yeah.
yeah. I agree. He really he when you compare him to, say, someone like a King Vegeta, that sick ass guy. Um, sometimes like, does King Vegeta care for Vegeta because Vegeta is so strong, right? And he he's next in line. Eventually, one day he'll be the king, right? Like, there's there's lots of reasons to be proud there, and on like just looking at Vegeta from a power perspective, but would he be as proud if Vegeta came out and he was like terribly weak and you know couldn't amount
He kind of
to.
strikes me as like he would disown him.
Yeah, right. That's what I was
He
gonna
kind of
get
strikes
to.
me as that of like, all
Right.
right, no, you're trash.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But where Bardock, obviously, we only get two animated uh, movies where he, exemplifies this. It's where he even mentions what's his name, Raditz, right? Like when he gets to when he gets back to planet Vegeta and he goes to his house and he sees Gine, he asks, "Oh, where's Raditz?" Right? Like, um, and obviously it's very minimal. Like, I mean, the story's not about Raditz, so Raditz isn't going to get much screen time, but he cares. Like, at least it's asking. He's asking. He's wondering where his son is. Who obviously, let's be real. If Bardock came he would Bardock, if you remember in the movie, he had this innate feeling that Goku was going to be really strong. And he
Mhm.
probably saw Raditz and was like, dang, my guy, like I know you try hard, but you're going to get left in the dust by your brother, your younger brother at that. And but like in the grand scheme of things, those things didn't really matter to him. At least that's how he comes across. Um and yeah, his fatherhood aspect I think is a big reason for like a big driving force for him, right? And uh it it humanizes him in a way that it just other Saiyans from planet Vegeta or other Saiyans that, you know, in his timeline that we don't see. Um uh he's he's willing to sacrifice himself for his son, where if we were to, and Paragus can have his own episode. Um, Paragus doesn't come across like that at all,
Yeah.
right? Um, he's always teetering on that. Does he care for Broly or is he using Broly for his
Yeah.
own gain? So
Mhm.
yeah, Bardock definitely has that, man. Like, um, you can relate to him as a father because it just feels like he cares for his sons and um he's willing to sacrifice himself for them, which is the ultimate sign of like um caring for his children. So I think that's a great angle on his character, right?
Yeah, and I think what really helps him too is the fact that he is only really in two episodes, right? Or two,
Yeah, episodes
I
really.
guess manifestations, I guess you would say, of his character. And I
Hmm.
think that that's to his benefit because there's a little bit of mystery behind him. Um,
Yeah.
and and I'm not saying that all these other people that are fathers in the show like aren't good fathers, but I think like at the core of it though, like I think the reason that Bardock hits like a heartstring is because for many of us we may not have had a good relationship with our father,
Hmm.
you know and I think that there's something there about Bardock that I think he speaks to many young people. I think, and I
Hmm.
think this is why he's so popular. I think in Japan, is there must just be a core, like not a core wound, but a core connection to what sometimes we wish our fathers would sometimes do. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like, uh, because sometimes our fathers just roll in this way where they don't tell us these things. And Bardock didn't really tell that to Goku. He didn't really tell him like I love you or anything like that. He wasn't like that, right? He wasn't around. He was working, as many
Right.
of our fathers are. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if you have a father, sometimes that's their experience, right? It's like our father is just working and we see him at night and he's gonna eat dinner and that's about it. And all we know is that he's working and he's bringing money in or whatever the role play is, whatever the
Mhm.
role is. But he has this epiphany that I think is really dope, where he has to really uh, have that internal dialogue about how do I move forward as a father? Like, I know I'm about to die. I know that our planet's about to end. So what do I need to do to my son? Like, what do I need to do for my son?
Right.
And I mean, it's unfortunate that it comes at the end of his life that he has that epiphany, but he at least has it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe, you know, when we get older as fathers, maybe we'll have the same epiphany, right? Of like, oh shit, maybe I didn't tell my son or my daughter that they were doing a good job, or they
Mm-hmm.
weren't like amazing at this thing, or you know what I'm saying, like that you didn't do that for the time that you were here, but towards the end you kind of have this like realization of like, oh man, I messed up,
Right.
but I can still do something about it, you know, while I'm still here. And I think that that is what Bardock does at the end of the Bardock special, is like, I fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I may not be the best role model for my son. That's the reality of it. You know, I've killed hella people. I'm kind of cold, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I don't know if I'm the best role model,
Yep.
but I know that I love you,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what I think is going to be best to try to save you. You know.
Right. And yeah, you touched on it right there. Like this is why I like Bardock so much, and I think why he's such an interesting character is because he is deep like that. Um, he he knows, like, I mean, I would say very few things are black and white, but he is he knows he's living an enigma, like a living enigma, because he kills, like, he's a warrior race. The Saiyan race is brutal, right? They are they're mercenaries, like you said. They kill for hire. They take over planets. There's very little that's gentle about them, but he's aware of that. Like he's aware of the just like, that's a burden that he carries with him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that moment that you just referred to, or that you just referenced, where he saves Goku and he sends him out to Earth. Um, you know, and if you remember, Gine asked him like, "Oh, well, why don't we just go with him?" And he says, "Well, they'll be able to trace me. Like, all we
Mm-hmm.
would be doing is like, they would eventually find us. They'd kill me, and then they'd kill, Kakarot." So he's come to terms like, no, my goal is to make sure my sons, primarily Goku, obviously, because the story is focused on Goku, is safe. Like, I'm out of the equation, and this is a way for him to redeem himself. You see this in other storytelling, or in other movies and other stories, where there's someone who's conflicted. There's
Mm-hmm.
an antagonist that's conflicted, and he or she knows, like, there are things that they've done that are frowned upon, and they come to a point in the story where they're willing to be they're like willing to turn on what it was they were doing and do what they feel is right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it doesn't redeem them completely. Maybe it means they die,
Mm-hmm.
but this is going to bring them some type of peace, and this is going to let them feel as if, at least I did this one good deed before I went out. And Bardock has a lot of that, whether it's in the uh, super movie or whether it's in the special. You know, I mean, we saw it. Like, he went back to warn everyone that the Saiyan, that planet Vegeta was going to explode, and obviously they laughed it. They laughed it off. Like, we know the story. He ends up fighting Frieza, like taking his goons on and fighting Frieza, and he dies. And Planet Vegeta explodes. And then there's that moment, like, that we all love, where he's going to. It's very symbolic. Like, he's entering Planet Vegeta, and Goku's leaving, and he senses that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that brings him some sense of peace, because when his last words are, literally his last words are, "My son still lives."
Mm-hmm.
um And I think that's touching. Like it's those, you don't get as many, you don't get many characters like that, right? Like I can never see Frieza being like, oh shoot, well I know I'm like Frieza's not a conflicted individual. Like he doesn't care, right? Like he's
Yeah.
he's gonna do what he has to do, right? And like
Yeah.
and Goku is not either, like because he's so oblivious to like a lot of things. Um Vegeta can be a little bit at times, I suppose, but for sure Bardock seems like the Saiyan who's not just the Saiyan, but the character who's most conflicted, and he tries to reconcile his emotions. Um, and yeah, man, it makes for like this great character, which I don't know if it does him a disservice or if it's good for him that he's seen in such a limited capacity, right? I mean, I don't know. What do you think? You think? I mean, it feels like conventional wisdom would be, well, nah, he's a great character. Of course, we want to see more of him. But would that take away from the allure? I don't know.
I mean, I think because he's such a, I mean, to be honest with you, like that special to me was one of my favorite things that we watched, and
Mhm.
I think a big part of it was because of the writing that they did in that one, and I felt like they did a lot of good thinking and a lot of good writing to write his character in a way that is sympathetic yet is there's an internal struggle, right? And as we've
Mhm.
talked about in past in our podcast, is like what we like to see in the characters is a struggle, right? There
Mhm.
is an internal battle in regards to transformations or for like an epiphany or some sort of like shift in the character. So Bardock has those components. So if I would love to see Bardock involved, but it's kind of similar to what we were talking about Trunks, right? It's like Trunks and Bardock are kind of in a hole where they don't necessarily really fit into the story right now.
Right.
And they would need to come up with something ridiculous
Yeah.
to bring him in to the fold,
Mhm.
Um in that I mean it helps him, right? Because you don't see him that often. And I
Mhm.
think it's really cool to whenever you do see him, which was only in that movie, and I think that's why you got such a big response in that movie when they showed us, saying life in him.
Mhm.
Um, because there is the mystique behind him. But if they were to bring him back, I think I'd be afraid to see what the hell they do to make sense of that, right? So like, how is Bardock alive? You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
if they were to bring him back, or even if they were to bring him back in like memories, like you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like if he's talking to Goku like through memories, like that'd be interesting.
Mhm.
But I don't know. The show has kind of gotten away from the writing of stories, like it's kind
Yeah.
of gotten away from that. So
It's
it would be a
gone more
shame for him to come back and it would just be like, him
and
doing
some
something
bullshit
ridiculous.
reason. And then let's
Yeah.
be honest, like he get obliterated in one hit. Like
that's
he's,
that's the truth. That's the other
you
sad
know,
part about it is the fact that he's not as strong as we'd like to see him be, right?
yeah,
It's like
exactly.
he doesn't even know what the fuck.
Right, like a guy. He's gonna,
He doesn't know
he
what
just,
the turns see Goku red. He's like, what the fuck happened to this dude? Like,
yeah,
oh
no,
man, things have changed since I was here.
yeah, damn, bro. I might just go back. Like, yeah, like you guys. It looks like you got it. Like,
Yeah, you got it. This bandana's not gonna do nothing.
yeah, yeah. This bandana ain't doing anything. No, but that's another thing. Like Saiyans. I mean, this is why another reason why I think he's such a fascinating character, and it's because we talked about how he's how he's a father and he connects in his own way with his children and but at the crux of it, the overarching theme is like this is a Saiyan who's brutal. He's a bad mother effer, like he just is. He's very stoic, he's serious, he doesn't really joke around that much, but he cares for those around him, he cares for his loved ones. And you see, we obviously talked about Goku and Raditz a little bit, uh And I would argue, obviously, Genie, because or Guinea,
Mm-hmm.
because she is, and I read up a little bit on her, and she was very weak. Like she's obviously low class, so she was very weak. She couldn't keep up with the fighting, so she just retired, and she was going to be a liability out in the field, so she retired. And so, but
I mean, my boy would probably be a liability out there, though.
who
Bardock.
well, and now he would for sure.
Yeah, now he definitely would.
Yeah,
dog.
now
Like,
he
he's
would.
not gonna do anything. Even Piccolo would probably stamp
Yeah,
him
there are
out.
a lot of I mean, we're being honest, bro. We see there's really only a handful of characters that can go in and do damage, and one of those would have to be Trunks. Like they'd have to bring him back, like you said, some weird way. But with getting back to Bardock and him carrying, like he's with Guinea on uh like there's she's for lack of a better word has been rejected or outcasted by because she's a low class Saiyan, like she can't fight, so there's very little use for her. So it's not as if this is a very glamorized, or she isn't like Android 18. Android 18 is someone who can actually you can count on, you can depend on. But he cares, like he's with her even with all of that, like he's with her, and he doesn't care for any of that stuff. And then even his boys, like his squad, right? He's it affects him when they die, right? And complete opposite to Vegeta, who doesn't care if Nappa gets killed. And
you're too weak, dog.
Yeah, you're weak.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
Too weak, anyways, man.
Yeah. So exactly, dude. And then like that's how like Freeze was like that, So Bardock has that human element to him that makes him, captivating. And yeah, man, I mean, he's such a deep character. But like you said,
is there any faults that you see in him as a character?
Yeah,
or is he like a perfect character?
Is he? So the thing is, obviously, is he perfect? That's a great question.
Like is he like like the epitome of like a perfect written character in this anime?
Well, I had never thought of that. Yes, I would think so, because he's from the like ilk of Trunks, very similar. Like they're in my opinion, they're extremely well written, and like I don't see flaws in his character. I mean, people can, and I'm not saying he's obviously not the strongest, but that's not the point, right? Like the point is this character, does he can you connect to this character? And I think I think the answer is yes. And I don't know, maybe you can enlighten me, but I don't see any flaws. Like I'm not even going to say glaring flaws. Like I don't see any flaws in him as far as a character is concerned. Like, yeah, of course he's killed people and stuff, like that's brutal. But in the context of the story, I don't see any. I don't know if you do.
Any flaws in him? I mean, I think in regards to storytelling, I think he has one of the best stories.
Yeah.
If not the best story that they've created, in my personal opinion. Because there is a lot of emotions there that they've written in. But I think that in many ways, I think the one flaw that I think that I see somewhat is that he's limited. He's limited in the range that you can tell his story. And just like Trunks, I think I would say the same thing about Trunks, that they're limited. They're limited by this like time sequence or wrap that they've created for themselves. So it's really hard to bring him back, like so to me, that's a character should be you should be able to just put them in somewhere if they're that good. But because you put yourself in a hole, it just doesn't make sense
Right.
in any way that you were to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like it just, it would have to be something ridiculous. And even if it was something
Right.
ridiculous, like I don't even know if that's a good thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like if it has to be that ridiculous. So
Probably
I don't
wouldn't
know. I
be
think
worth
that's like the only thing that I dislike about the way that they did Bardock is that, and maybe it's just, you know, in retrospect, maybe they didn't know that it was going to take off like this, like Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
You know, because I think in many ways, I think they were just like, you know, we're gonna write this really cool story so that it makes sense why Goku's on Earth, and you know, we're gonna show his dad that looks just like him. That's another thing also that I think limits him, is that he looks
I
like
guess
Goku.
yeah.
And unlike Trunks looks like himself, and he doesn't look
Right.
necessarily like Bulma or Vegeta. I mean, if anything, I think he looks more like Bulma.
Right.
But Bardock looks exactly like Goku. And
Right.
at this point in the series, like, you know, it's like Goku's the dad. You know what I'm saying? He's like stronger than Bardock. And that's not to say that's like a horrible thing, but I think again, he would just be a liability out there in the streets. You know what I'm saying? He'd just be a liability, or he'd just be watching the show, you know, like with Beerus or something. And
or Krillin, because
or Krillin, you know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't make sense. So the limitations that a character like him has, I think, can hurt him in the long run in regards to where can we bring him back, because we want him back, but it's hard to see him be back. And man, there was like an analogy I had in my head, but it just slipped my mind. In regards to, you know, if you want something so bad, but it just doesn't make sense, you know, for it to be back.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes this is it. Like you said, it would do him more harm if they brought him back than it would good. Of course, there'd be that initial like hype for seeing him, but eventually they would have to come up with something so ridiculous in order for him to actually be an asset to, like, you know, for him to help in battle or do, I don't know, right? Like at this point, like he just doesn't fit in the story from what the prototypical Saiyan does. If he were to come in and be like you said, I've always had this like idea, or it's a desire more than an idea, but it's that, I mean, I've thought about it before, like that I would wish I would like for Goku to somehow meet Bardock. And the only way I can think about that is like if they met in purgatory, right? Or like Goku on the verge of dying and he meets Bardock and they're able to, I think this is the extent of what Bardock can be at this point.
Yeah, he's just like that, like stoic, like last message type of guy.
Exactly.
You know, he's kind of like the last message. Like you'd have to like close out the series with like Goku having like a final scene where he gets to finally see his dad. And like, they give like a thumbs up to the screen or something like that.
Something wild like that. I mean, people would go crazy for that. But I think I think that would also help Goku's character, because it would tap into, you know, emotions that we don't necessarily, not emotions, but questions that we never see him ask, you know. And so you know, would Bardock be able to, you know, if Dragon Ball Super was announced tomorrow and they on the poster Bardock is there, I'm concerned, right? Like I'm concerned.
Like, now what are we doing? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do to explain this?
Yeah, this is crazy. But you know, it's like we have to accept, like, we're so far removed from Bardock's
And
timeline,
Planet Vegeta, yeah.
right? That there's no that he's gone. Like they will never really be able to, in a way that makes sense, be able to fit in the current story of Dragon Ball. But if at least as a warrior, but if they were able to kind of tie him in some sort of spiritual way, or I don't know, some type of reminiscence, that would be really cool. But like you said, he's tied to his actual story, like
Yeah,
the
he's tied to that time.
exactly. And maybe that sucks from what is it, like, fan service perspective, but from his character, at least, like, it doesn't like, it kind of adds a little more to the intrigue, to the allure, like, to his legend.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, overall, great character, dude. I think, who would you say who do you like more between him? I mean, you're splitting hairs here, I think, but like between him and Trunks, I feel like it's pretty. I mean, I wasn't on the Vegeta episode, but I think it's fair to say that these are two of the, best written characters in the series.
Yeah, I mean, I think I personally like Bardock more,
Okay.
and maybe it's just because I'm a dad and I just like, I can relate to that. But Trunks has what I like about him is that he has this like teenager angst about him. Like he's like this teenager trying to figure stuff out, and as opposed to Bardock that's already lived his life. If anything, I would love to see like a mini series on Bardock's life, like another one, where they like do something where they show him do some other stuff. And man, just a break from like the red and the blue Super Saiyan gods and stuff, like just a break from that. Just take us back to the fundamentals, dog, of just my boy just throwing a ball at somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like he's just pitching that thing, and that's his move. You know what I'm saying? Like that's his move, and that's as good as it gets. It doesn't. We don't need a fucking ridiculous blast that destroys a planet. He can just take out what was it, Dodoria, and that's his nemesis, Dodoria. So like I would love to see that, but similarly, they're two characters that exist within time constraints, and I am not surprised that they face the same problem. I think I think if anything, many other characters that are still in the series should have gone that route.
Right.
Like, that they could have just lived in a timeline and that's where they stayed, and they don't have to keep being. I think that's kind of the problem that they faced, right? It's like they've kept some characters on and they don't necessarily know what to do. And then you have these two characters where they did this, they executed it, they had a plan, they executed it, and they kind of just live there. And it's fine if they live there, and it's unfortunate in the sense, like how you said, the fanfare, because we want to see them, but it doesn't make sense. Then you get a storyline like the Future Trunks one, and I know that's the best one that we got at Super, but like,
but it's a C, like we said. I mean,
it was
we're not.
It was tough. It was a little bit tough to watch at some points. It was a little rough to watch, and I would hate that to happen to Bardock, but then again, I would love to see Bardock. I would love to see a storyline developed for him. And that sounds interesting to me. Like an underworld type of storyline where he's like, he's trying to be like a dad or something like that. I'd love for him to like, if anybody that is in the Dragon Ball community, this is my idea, but it's just an idea, right? Of like, it would be tight for Bardock's storyline to coach or talk to Goku about being a dad,
right?
Because that's something that we don't talk about. And I know that this may be a deeper conversation, but Goku needs to get his shit together in regards to being a dad.
Being a father,
both of his sons, it ain't it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Like of where we're coaching him to be, like. They're just not. They're just not living up to what they could be, and I think a part of that is because Goku's not mentoring them in the way that they need to be mentored.
Right.
And I'd love for Bardock to do something along the lines of that. And I think you can still keep some of Bardock's like hard ass to him. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
the tough love type of coaching for
Mm-hmm.
Goku. Um, and that doesn't necessarily entail like Bardock going out there and trying to fight. He could just be like the coach, And I think that'd be something cool. But yeah,
That yeah.
that's literally the only way that I could see him being involved. Him just like
Yeah.
telepathically talking to Goku.
Exactly. Like it would have to be something like that. And I guess I'll throw in
Yeah,
my little
what would
scenario.
you love to
Yeah,
what storyline would you create for this man?
so I would love for, like, whether it's underworld, whether it's purgatory, I would love for Bardock to be able to see what Goku has become,
Mm-hmm.
and Guinea as well. uh I mean, Raditz unfortunately died in the line of fire, but and see how that would affect them, seeing that one of their sons died, but then also seeing what Goku has become, especially since Bardock uttered those final words before he, ultimately perished. Um, it would be great to see him and, Goku's mom be able to see what Goku has become, and just I would love to see how that would impact Bardock, and maybe even give him that closure, um, allow him to rest, uh, you know, and I feel like it would be a wholesome, uh, it would maybe just be one episode, or I don't know what it would be, but it would be nice to see. Like it would be a moment of closure, and really be able to say, Bardock be able to say, like, okay, I can go now. I can rest now. Um,
Yeah, it's a nice. That would be a really emotional episode, which I think that's what they need. What I'm saying? Super is lacking emotion, and
oh, for
that's just
sure.
it's just lacking super emotion. So I would love for them to pick up on the characters that have emotions to them and just really write some stuff out for us to see those emotions. Yeah, man, that'll be tight. I'd love for them to see that. The thing what I like about that line that you keep mentioning about my son lives on and stuff, like,
Hmm.
or some shit like that, like there's a part there of like a legacy,
Hmm.
like, and I think as fathers, I think that's something that we always got to keep in mind as the leaders of children, but
Hmm.
just of any children. It's like, you may die, but what are you leaving them behind with?
Yeah, for sure.
And what's the love that you're leaving behind with them? And that's how you really live on. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is on my hand, on my arm. That's one of my favorite quotes. I read this book in college. This is this quick side note, but this what it reminds me of is like, as long as you love everybody, or you love the people around you, like, you can die without ever really dying,
Mm.
because you live in their hearts, you live in their minds, you live in their prayers, and you live there. And to me, that's kind of what I see Bardock's doing, right? Like, and the thing that also too is like Goku looks just like him, so it's like he
Yeah.
literally is living, you know, is through him type of
Exactly.
deal.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. And I think that's a great touch to end this episode.
Yeah.
And I think that side note that you offered was awesome, because there's another quote. I forget who said it, but like, maybe it's what matters is the content. It's been a while, man. I really don't want to butcher this, but was it gone? I don't know. But it was like, every man should have a child, plant a tree, and write a book, because all three of them outlive you, or the man. Um, and it's in that same vein, like, you physically will one day cease to exist, but like you said, what are you leaving behind? Um, and how will your legacy be carried forth? Um, and I think Bardock being able to see like what Goku's become, it would be awesome for him to get a view into what how Goku's carried his legacy in a way, because it's not like Goku outright said, "Oh, okay, I'm carrying my father's legacy," but he has a lot of Bardock in him, in the sense that Bardock is a bad mother effer
Yeah.
that will do damage to you, but he does care about those around him. And so, but yeah, man, I guess we'll wrap it up with that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I
It's the
mean,
boy.
great character. These last two, they've been spot on. I
We
mean,
got the good ones out the way, and now we're about to dive into the
and some of the trash. Nah, I mean,
into the trashy ones.
well, we'll talk offline about who, but I think we still have some hitters in our list.
Okay.
But everyone, thank you for taking the time to listen. We really appreciate your listenership.
Yeah, we're almost getting to 2,000 listens, by the way, y'all. So thank you very much for continuing to listen. We at least I feel very proud that we've stayed consistent, and hopefully through our conversations, you have found some sort of, I guess you would say
a little bit of everything, right?
Camaraderie, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Like
you're a fly on the wall, and maybe we've dropped. I don't want to sound narcissistic. Maybe we've dropped some knowledge.
Yeah.
But if not, at least hopefully you've enjoyed it. But yeah, man, that's a great note. Hopefully it continues to grow exponentially. And yeah, we'll keep pumping out the episodes. But with that, we will go ahead and sign off. If you listen to us on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe. Let us know if you like Bardock. If is he one of your favorite characters? Do you not care for him?
Do you not know about him? Because I think
Right?
many of us didn't know about him. But
all right. And our social medias are down in the description, and you can listen to us on all the podcast platforms. But with that, we'll go ahead and sign off. And until next week, stay safe.